impactful things that we can do with social media, and something that we strive for with our local client base especially, is this idea of accelerating word of mouth. So in this room, how many of you would say, word of mouth is my very best source of business? Let's show hands. Okay, that's a lot of hands. In the front, did you look around? Can we put hands up again and just take a look? So we all love word of mouth. What are we doing to make it happen faster or in a greater number of referrals? Well, we are doing social media marketing. That's what we're doing, because we recognize that the things happening in person, saying, hey Sam, you've got to go check out this new store, they've got really cute clothes, that can happen online. That same interaction can be mirrored. So one of our strategies is to think, what can I do that is authentic and real, but also accelerating that and makes it happen in greater frequency? So for local businesses, this is paramount, because we all are talking, so let's give them something to talk about. And your engagement strategy in order to achieve this, 2 words, I like alliteration, relevant and relational. Because word of mouth is about relationships, that I trust you when you tell me this is a good business, I can believe you. But it also has to be relevant, because the information needs to land appropriately with the audience. So that's social media at this kind of high, what are we looking to achieve? What is marketing? What is one of our major goals as a group of local business leaders? But now let's talk about where we should be playing. And once we establish that, how are we going to win? Because if you try to play tennis with a bowling ball, it's not going to work. So if you try to show up on Snapchat and achieve tremendous business growth, and you don't belong on Snapchat, that's not the place for you to play, you're not going to win. So first things first, where should you be playing? Then we can talk about your strategy to win. Well, we talk about LinkedIn as our digital trade show. So each social platform, we have this just kind of analogy way to sum it up. Because one thing we find is that a lot of our clients or people we interact with in the community say, I don't understand what fill in the blank is for. What is LinkedIn for? What is Instagram for? Is it for me? We also see this mistake of, I've got to be everywhere in order to be doing social media right. And we would argue the opposite, that if you're everywhere, that you're probably doing something wrong, because it's about relevance, right? Remember our 2 R's, relevance, relationships. Is that platform relevant for you? So 18 to 49 is the demographic, because we get that question a lot. What age target? 18 to 49, there's your nitty-gritty data point for those who love data. But it's really about building connections in a professional environment. So I think of it as a trade show. If I would say it at a trade show, I would say it at LinkedIn. As far as voice, I pivot it to a more professional tone. It's not going to be as fun and playful as Facebook or Instagram might be. So very much wrapping my brain around, is this something I would do at a trade show? If yes, appropriate for LinkedIn. If no, probably put it somewhere else like Facebook or Instagram. We also talk about increasing reach of your digital storefront. This is a blue Mobius term we use all the time to indicate your website. That before someone is going to step through the doors of your business, they're likely going to find you on the internet through Google search or through some sort of referral, like a friend posting a link about your business, they click and end up on your website. So LinkedIn's a great way to increase that reach and make more people aware and send people to your website. But it is also about showing thought leadership. This idea that I have really important things to say as a professional in my field, and amongst other professionals, I want to share those ideas with you. So these are 2 of the main reasons that we have businesses engaging in LinkedIn. Professional services companies, very important for you all. Academics, thought leadership, very important for you as well. If you have a regional or global reach, so outside of the local community, that's another reason that you would want to be engaging on LinkedIn. We find that technology and innovative organizations also do really well on this platform, and that's because they also inherently tend to have this bigger, more global reach. So like Polymer Solutions serves a global client base. They do exceptionally well on LinkedIn because that population mirrors their client base. It's very similar. Any questions or pain points associated with LinkedIn that you'd like to discuss before we move on to the next platform? Yes?
You know, on LinkedIn, when they say, you've been searched or you've been found or somebody was looking at you, I would love to know the flip of that. Like who was searching me? Who wanted to know more about me?
Sure.
So that you can follow up. But there's really, I don't know a way, or I haven't learned the way yet.
So there's a couple ways. Sometimes you will get It'll tell you sometimes who was looking. It gives you a limited look, so sometimes it'll tell you 3 of 5 people, for example. When you pay up for more premium subscriptions, they'll tell you more. It kind of unlocks that secret, which is part of the draw. I think it's helpful to an extent. I like it because I'm curious too when I see people looking at my profile and then I get a call from that person. It fills in the data points and I understand they've been thinking about us. Now they're reaching out to us and like, oh, this makes sense. So I like it to just, it's almost like hey, this person's thinking of you right now. And it's this nice professional nudge at times. So that would be one way to do it is clicking in and seeing, because it usually will come to me via email and then I go to LinkedIn. It's another way they draw you into the platform. But second to that would be paying for a premium subscription to see more of it. Sometimes they'll give a free 30-day trial for you to determine if it's worth it or not. So I would suggest giving that a try, but making sure you unsubscribe before your card starts getting charged. Other LinkedIn questions? Yes?
Just maybe just a general question. You were talking about maybe not, it might not make sense to play in every single area. I know, like, let's say you take a picture, you can very easily put it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So would you recommend not doing that if you don't play in those spaces, or would you recommend doing it because it's just so simple to be in that space?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We typically avoid pushing to all platforms from one click, if you will, because each platform has a certain way to optimize the post. And as we move through this, you'll see some of we're going to give pro tips as we go. So there's going to be actionable things that we're saying, please do this, because this is something we do that not a lot of people are doing. The idea of pushing to all platforms at once is time efficient, but you're not able to optimize. So one specific example is Instagram. You need to use tons and tons of hashtags. They're highly relevant on Instagram. If you were to do the same on Facebook, it would kind of fall flat because Facebook hashtags aren't as relevant. So therefore the post just doesn't look as professionally polished. Another example is Instagram doesn't hyperlink a URL. If you put a URL in the post and said, click for more, you can't click for more. So understanding the little nuances of how technology works on each platform does determine how we post. So none of ours are ever pushed exactly the same because of that. Other questions on LinkedIn? Okay. So here's our pro tip. Make it part of your routine. It's hard if you don't have a routine, but if, let's say, you set a reminder for 2 times a week, it doesn't have to be every day, but just twice you get on LinkedIn with a goal of, I'm going to comment on something. There is going to be a job change, there is going to be an award, there is going to be something in this community. You can simply say, congratulations, so happy to hear that. Really proud of you, great work, great article. It doesn't take a lot of time, but the emotional currency you obtain with someone by publicly affirming their accomplishment is huge. So we can all certainly add, it might not even be 15 minutes, really I think you could do it in 5. But get in there and see what's going on with a professional community. You'll also be more informed, so in conversation, oh, did you see Sarah now works for Blue Mobius Marketing? I saw it updated on her profile on LinkedIn the other day. So it helps you get a pulse check for what's going on. The high school reunion, Facebook. I think we're all pretty comfortable in the Facebook space because it's been around, we know the platform. We call it the high school reunion because think of the type of content you're seeing on Facebook. You're seeing, I just had a baby, or I have a grandbaby now, or marriage, or anniversary, life accomplishments, but it's this everyday idea of we're keeping people in the loop about what's transpiring, what we're happy about. Sure, there's a lot of political chatter we could probably all do without, but if we're thinking about the things that really bring value to the platform, it is high school reunion type talk of like, oh, so-and-so got married and had a kid, this is great. 79% of online adults are on this platform, so this is where it's at. Love it or hate it, this is where it's at. For local business, love it or hate it, this is where it's at. If there was just kind of a knee-jerk, there's always exceptions, but if I had a knee-jerk, where should you be as a local business? It's Facebook. It would take a huge edge case for me to say, you're a local business but don't belong on Facebook. I'm not sure if it exists. I'll try to think later today if there's an example, but I just can't see that being the reality because this is where we're doing everyday life together in a digital space. So another question we get asked regularly is, how much should I post? Do I post multiple times a day, once a day for a full week, so 7 times a week? And we say, this is maybe an annoying answer to you that like really firm answers, but relevance dictates frequency. Do not post just to post. Do not waste their time and attention. When they see your post, it should bring some sort of measurable value, whether it is a chuckle, or oh, I didn't know that, or oh, look at that new person. But what you're doing over social media must bring value to your audience for them to stay engaged. And engagement drives that connectivity and that interaction that we're measured against with Facebook. So it's critical that we're interacting in a way that is relevant and our other are relational. So this is important for companies with a local client base. I would also say anyone in the healthcare space. So whether local or part of a bigger group, Facebook's very important because health is part of everyday life. Service-based industries, and I'm just going to say mom or parent focused. I should have been more inclusive. Parent focused. So kind of thinking about hashtag mom life, the mom struggles. It's just a really great place to meet these parents where they're at because that is their platform. Community service organizations too, you want to spread word about the really good things you're doing within the community. This is a great space to do it. So if you can frame your mind about community gathering and conversations, I think that changes how we look at Facebook because I do recognize it can be really frustrating and there's a lot of, especially because of political commentary, there can be a lot of Facebook wars. But if we choose to frame it as this is about community gathering and conversations, then we're helping define how it's going to be used, especially amongst our local community. So let's get some Facebook pain points or questions. What do you guys have for me? Yes, ma'am.
How do you see Facebook in like 5 to 10 years? Because a lot of what I hear is that people that are in college right now, Facebook is for old people. They don't use it anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But they're going to get old. They're going to have kids, and they're going to want their kids to be like, they're going to want that. We just had a baby. My use of Facebook has so fundamentally changed as I've gotten old. But in all seriousness, as I have matured, I was in college when Facebook came out, and it was like, what is this Facebook thing? What are people doing? And I was so judgy of this thing, and now look at me, right? So even how I've evolved with the platform and the way it lets us connect. You know, where do I see it in 5 years? I really optimistically, I see it as a more of a force for good and community than the negative connotations that are so often associated with it. But I think part of that is Facebook making smart algorithm changes that reward meaningful connections over these cheap tricks of clickbait and enraging and inflammatory captions. And so when the algorithm change came out, I did have a brief moment of, oh no, because we do a lot of Facebook in this for our clients. But then I read through the reasons it was changing and what Facebook was endeavoring to do. And honestly, all I can do is applaud them for taking active steps to making the platform mean more. Because it is a way we're connecting in an increased global business community and just community at large. So I hope that answers your question. I think those people will jump on the bandwagon as their life changes and their seasons change.
Or reason changes.
What's that?
Their reason might change.
Yes.
Their reason to be on Facebook. In other words, you know, here they are in their new business. Here they are in their new
That's a great point.
connection to a new community.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they're in a new space to promote.
Yeah. I see it as a good thing that as that population so familiar with technology grows up, or matures, grows up, they'll see more value in Facebook for them. But that is something we talk about a lot if our clients are trying to reach the younger millennial population, then is Facebook where we're going to reach them. Other questions about Facebook? Yes, ma'am.
I think sometimes it's really hard to know, especially if you're a small business and you're not like a huge global company, who is seeing your posts, because I think previously a lot of times with the algorithm, if I was following a local business in Blacksburg, I would actively have to go to their page to see if they had posted anything because it would not show up in my feed. Whereas, you know, I mean, it's hard to really know who's seeing. I mean, the community market page, even though I'm an administrator, I don't even see it on my personal Facebook feed.
Yeah.
So I think that is probably a really big obstacle that a lot of people face, because if you're not like a giant like Netflix who has like a huge account, and of course has, you know, everybody sees it if somebody posts it, even if maybe you don't subscribe to Netflix, but like, you know, if you're just a small little coffee shop maybe and you're posting on Facebook, sometimes, unless somebody is just a really big fan of your page, or maybe it's your mom that goes and clicks on it every day, like, sometimes you don't, it doesn't show up on feeds.
Yeah, that's very valid, and that points more than ever to why it has to be content that is relevant and relational, because if I love what you shared and I like it, that's going to show up that Caitlyn liked Community Market of Blacksburg's post. And if I comment, even better with the algorithm change, because Facebook specifically spelled out that actual engagement, so commenting carries more weight than a like. And then even better, if I share it to my own timeline, that's going to help it grow as well. So that's why I take it back to agreed, 100% agreed. But Netflix would probably argue frustrations in the same way, because the proportion of followers to being seen is going to, the percentages, I haven't looked at the study, so I can't throw data behind this, but I'm just going to say that they say they have 10,000 followers, you have 1,000 followers. Not all 10,000 are going to see the post. So they're going to have similar pain points, even though to us, as smaller business owners, we're like, wow, Netflix has this amount of people commenting and liking, but out of what percentage of those who like the page are really seeing it? So we all have those same struggles, so I'd say that the playing field is fairly equal as far as what we've been given, but what differentiates is what are you going to do with what you've been given? Are you going to play up to the strengths of Community Market of Blacksburg and what people love to see and engage with? And if so, then your engagement is just going to grow and it'll make it carry farther. So here's a pro tip. I would love to know, I'll explain it, and then if you knew about this before today, show of hands and be confident if you did, because I'm very curious about how secret of a feature this is. So let's say this was a post that we shared on our Facebook page, and I clicked on people who reacted to see the list of who was engaging. And then in the list, you can see this Derek gentleman, Kimberly, Deb, they do not like Blue Mobius marketing yet. But I say yet because since they liked my post, I can invite them to like my page. And we tested this out with one of my, Jonathan, works for Blue Mobius, doesn't like Blue Mobius on Facebook. Not sure what that says. But he came up on one of my lists when I was doing this regularly, and I invited him to like the page without telling him that I did it. He was like, look at this email I just got. This email invited me to like Blue Mobius marketing. How do you think that happened? It's because I clicked the button. So this is, if there is a pro tip of all pro tips today, this is the one that I'm going to tell you. Every post you share, when there's a list of who's liked your post, I want you to go in and look at the list and invite who has not yet liked your page to like your page.
Does the request come from me or does it come from my company?
Company, right, Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. It does not come from you individually, which makes it even more beautiful. Because I can, if I invite people to like Blue Mobius just from that list where it's like, invite people to like your page, it comes from me personally, which is kind of, it's like kind of awkward, kind of not if they're friends. But this is behind the identity of your company, so it's powerful. Who knew about this? Okay, very good.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes.
I do a lot of this, and if you live outside of like 20-mile radius, I don't invite you to like the page.
Okay.
Because we're local, you know, I don't want to get somebody liking the page for me personally, that's a decision you have to make.
Yeah.
For, you know, content so that I can get my depth of the base versus the breadth.
Interesting. I can see it going either way. I can see value in that specific for what you do.
Right.
But then also because you have really good ideas, I would see value in your ideas being spread beyond this region, even though you do serve people regionally. So I don't have an issue with that. I think that's a fun one to mentally joust over the merits of either way. So I like that perspective. Thank you. Okay, we're good. Local bar, Twitter. We call it the local bar because if you think about a local bar, or we will say busy restaurant if you don't choose to visit bars. But if you can imagine a local bar or a bar where it's like you walk in, you see someone like, oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, hey, you're here too. How was school today? It was good, great. Oh, wonderful. How's business? And it's just like choppy and like, I'll have another. And we're just interacting quickly. And you could kind of pause and be like, Anita, you have an open house coming up. That's exciting. What are you guys doing? How's the RSVP count looking good? But then I can pivot and have another conversation. So it's this idea of short, meaningful cyber high fives, as Sarah likes to call it, are possible. You can just be like, hey, over Twitter, or you can have a more meaningful conversation if you choose to. Most popular among 18 to 29. Quick conversations, they upped the character count from 140 to 280. I have mixed emotions about that. I liked the mental like jumping jacks I had to do to figure out how to stuff 140, meaning into 140 characters. But alas, we're at 280 now. So consider it conversing across cyberspace. That's one way we wrap our brain around it. So you can't really share this lengthy post, which is in a lot of ways good for how Twitter has been utilized as of late. Real-time dialogue, which is great for things like this, to be live tweeting, or if you go to conferences or events, to be engaging with the audience as it's unfolding. Always respond to any @ mentions. An @ mention would be an example like you see here, where in a literal sense, Savannah Frazier typed @Blue Mobius, our handle, and then talked to us. We would never want to let that be radio silent. We would never want to ignore Savannah because it was extremely generous of her to get on Twitter and leave this feedback. And so to honor it and to foster that relationship, because relevance relationships, we responded, thanks for such a kind note, with a little blush emoji because it's super cute. But we responded in a way that honored who she was and the way she extended herself to us over social media. Other notes, hashtags are a must. So this is part of a larger conversation. I taught a class at Radford and they have their own hashtag because it's social media marketing at Radford University, so SMM4RU. Anytime I lecture, we use the same hashtag to keep the dialogue running from semester to semester. So that's what this is part of. So that hashtag and that interaction is indexing the content in a bigger context. That's the use of the hashtag. Also, go Highlanders, just because it's brand speak and it adds a little bit of personality. So those seeking global reach, this is a great way to be connected. I do know though there's some in the local community that have a lot of great conversations over Twitter. We engage with them. So there's also, I wouldn't say that it's only global, although I do think that if you serve a global client base, you really need to consider Twitter for that. And then other thought leaders, that's how we're seeing the local community engage well, is just chatting back and forth about things relevant in industry or within the community, and also the live event component. If you're going anywhere that has a live aspect to it, figure out that hashtag and be tweeting in real time along the event. What questions do you have about Twitter and its value? Yes.
How do you know what hashtags are relevant just for local? I mean, is there a search way to just look for local, like relevant hashtags?
Yeah, you can. One way that we do that is we search out, look at what other people are using. So if other people have done that thought process for you, it's not copying, it's being smart and joining that conversation. So one that we like to use for this event and for anything involving the South Main Merchant Association is Why Blacksburg. Our first workshop was titled Start with Why, Marketing Your Why. But then this idea of why are we here in Blacksburg? Why is Blacksburg wonderful? And so we'll use that hashtag. So as kind of this community, we could decide that we're going to bump that hashtag up in significance if we all start using it together. Blacksburg is always a good one because there are some handles like Blacksburg Stuff that monitors that hashtag. I just think that variety is good too because each time you switch up the hashtag you use, you're going to connect with a different audience. So, insurance questions, changing it up. We do marketing tips, marketing advice, marketing agency, and with each hashtag we're connecting in a different way. Other questions? If you put out regular content, meaning a blog, then we suggest as a pro tip using a social media management tool to distribute that timeless content. So you're not lacking in relevance. I've heard someone recently said, well, if you use something like this, aren't you becoming irrelevant because you're scheduling rather than having a real-time conversation? But no, this is why not. Because you're scheduling it in a way that you're hoping to facilitate that real-time conversation when it goes live. So when the post lands, you're hoping someone will see it and ask a question or engage with it. But this makes it a better use of your time to schedule it all in advance, and it ensures that a strategy is followed rather than knee-jerk use of social media. So any of these, we specifically, Buffer is more simple. So if you're the keep it simple kind of person, then I'd say check out Buffer. I do really like Hootsuite though for more complex social media accounts. So if you have multiple accounts or you're monitoring streams of content, Buffer is not good if you want to monitor hashtags or specific accounts. They don't have the same list features. So I would say explore them, see what really works well, but also Buffer and Hootsuite both have free versions for up to a certain cap of accounts. So you could try them out without fear of wasting resources investing in something that doesn't work.